All right, so just for reference, this is going to follow the same theme as the last game we went over last time. That's fixing weakness and attacking it. So let's see what it is. So Sicilian again. This is the Rosalimo. E6 is pretty standard, by the way. It's fine. Yeah, another point here. So if you're wondering about Black's opening, he didn't really play this so accurately. So going back before d5. So actually, after like d3, a move like f6 is actually kind of common here.
Really?
Yeah, it may look kind of silly, but the point is you want to stop e5 and keep white from partitioning those d and c pawns again.
Interesting. Seems like a lot of pawn moves.
Yeah, it seems like it, but the position's kind of closed, and so you actually do have some time for that. And by the way, your plan is you're going to follow up with like d6 and e5. You're just going to try to plug up the center, basically. Anyway, so
okay.
If you're wondering where Black went wrong, that's basically. All right, so let's keep going. All right, so you're familiar with this pawn structure with b3, d3, c4 from the last game. Do you remember the last game, by the way? It was a week ago. You do? Yeah, the pawn structure was almost exactly the same. All right, so let's keep going. All right, so e5. Do you understand what the purpose of this move is?
No. Threaten the...
All right, I'm glad you said that. Okay, because other people probably don't know either, right? Okay, so it's that bishop on c8 is the purpose behind that move. So White's trying to restrict that. So in this kind of position, for example, Black might consider playing d4 followed by e5, and then all of a sudden his light squared bishop is ready to enter the game, before White played e5 anyway.
Yeah.
So with e5, the light squared bishop is restricted by its own pawn at e6 and by White's pawns on c4 and d3. So it's kind of restricted, and that's going to be a problem for Black, and White's also making sure that it remains hard to defend the c5 pawn. All right. Okay. So yeah, this is a difficult decision for Black, because if in the long run he's going to have to play d4, because White's going to play moves like knight a4 and bishop a3 and rook c1, and the pressure is going to pile on that pawn. So I mean, objectively, it probably is a mistake. Black should have played, maybe like rook f7 first, but. Followed by similar plan of the game.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we'll rook f7 with the idea of playing queen f8 to defend that c5 pawn.
Oh, okay. Wow. All right.
Yeah, that's just another. So, by the way, for your reference, if you find yourself with these double c pawns, that's like a common theme for guarding your c pawn. The last game, I suggested putting the queen on a7 to guard it. This is like worst case scenario. You really don't want to be doing this.
Yeah.
But f8 is another common square you can guard that c5 pawn from. So that's why you would find a move like rook f7. But anyway, so that's why Black played d4, if you're wondering, because eventually White's going to open up the c file. Knight 4.
There's the knight a4 move. Now there's the rook f7 move.
Yep.
Bishop a3.
And now in this position, think about how you can continue attacking c5. So if you can no longer put any more pressure, then it's going to be hard to see how White can break through, because the king side is closed, right? If you open up the queen side, like if you try playing b4, all you're going to do is solve Black's double pawns. A problem with that, I should say. So how can White increase the pressure? Yeah.
By moving the queen in a file.
Moving the queen to a?
No, to e1, but that doesn't change.
Okay, what's wrong with queen e1?
Because it doesn't make any pressure on.
No, then you can do a5.
Yeah, you have the right idea. Yeah, queen, you're right. So White in this position can attack c5 directly. You can only threaten it. And queen e1 threatens to go to a5. And then if White were to do that, then the pawn wouldn't be defensible, right?
Yeah.
So you definitely have the right idea. Now in the game, White didn't choose this actually because queen e1 allows knight f4. So he chose a different square to prevent that. Yeah, queen d2.
with the threat here
Yep.
and guarding this square.
Yeah, so White's pursuing his own plans while stopping Black's plans. So you have to think about both, right? All right. So Black just stops it forcefully. It's an ugly move to make. I mean, it's painful for me to see because you just weaken b6. That light squared bishop is buried permanently in this. The only way you could ever get out is by d7, e8, and then coming out to h5 after Black moves the other two pieces out of the way. So it's looking pretty dismal already. I mean, it's just
Sad bishop.
But it's very instructive to see how White wins, though, right? I mean, it's really hard to win in winning position, right? So let's go on. Yeah, this move is interesting. So White's goal here is not so much to try to take the rook, although that's what happens, but he would ideally like to get rid of that dark squared bishop because it defends c5. Now here, the only way for Black to avoid losing the exchange is by taking the knight. But this is highly undesirable. For example, if he takes here, then just queen takes g5, and then the problem is Black's going to lose c5, and then d4, and dark squares remain weak. So that's the problem when you have a pawn chain like this, where it has a weak base, is when the base falls, then the forward pawns are usually not long and going after. So
And you see you're losing c5 because you no longer have two defenders for it. The bishop has taken away from the defense of c5. You have two attackers. You have only the queen to defend. So this pawn falls, you take with the bishop, and then the bishop can grab the d4 pawn as well. And then that's just being up two pawns.
yeah, my way, I mean, it would be tempting instead of playing knight g5 to just sit on your laurels and kind of do nothing, because Black's position is so restricted. But in this situation, you have to think about how you can improve your position, not just how helpless your opponent is, right? And here, the queen side is actually blocked. So if you don't play knight g5, it's hard to see how White can improve. So in this sort of situation, that's why you would look for a forceful move like that. Anyway, the game, Black didn't want to suffer by taking the knight. He just sacrificed the exchange. I think he took on e5, right?
Yeah, took on e5. Takes.
Of course, White takes what he's given. Now, this is an important point, too. So after knight takes f7, I mean. So here, if Black's allowed, he can obtain decent compensation by playing e5, and then finally his bishop may get some breathing room, right, come to life. So how can we try to discourage this?
We can
Yeah.
work on e1.
Well, if you play rook e1, he's just going to play e5 anyway.
Yeah, because
And he has that defender. Cube.
so
F4.
yeah.
Yeah, f4. Yeah, you're just trying to put another pawn in the path of that. Now, Black can play e5 now, but then he opens up the f file, which is lined up with his queen, and he can play rook a e1 afterwards. And all of White's pieces are playing. So this gives us a critical extra open file. Yeah, I think he played f4. Yeah. Yeah,
He did play f4, yeah.
yeah, rook a6, I mean, it's kind of a depressing position for Black, because it's hard to suggest how else he can improve. I mean, this is basically suicide playing this kind of move, because what's your rook doing there? But
Yeah, it's guarding a piece or a pawn that isn't attacked.
well,
That pawn's
exactly.
fine.
Yeah, I think he was just worried about knight b6, but
Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
but it's hard to criticize Black because his position's so bad.
Right.
Anyway, so White just continued pressure. I think he played rook e1.
Hold on. All right. Yep.
Yeah. All right, so what do you think White's up to here? Did he do his last couple of moves make any sense?
Yes,
Yeah.
he doubles the rooks on a semi-open.
Good. I'm glad that makes sense to you. Now, some people might not think it makes sense because you're attacking e6, which is defended.
Yeah.
And what other scores for penetration does White have? e5 is defended, right?
Is this one of those situations where you're considering giving back the exchange?
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, general rule of thumb, like if you can attack an exchange and get even one pawn, that's usually enough. And here White can actually get a couple of pawns. So we'll see how white does that. I think black just moves his king or something. Yeah, and this is a critical point now.
So like if you take a piece and then you can give it back, but and then in the process take even more. Well,
what's that?
So you have a rook, right? You took one of his rooks.
Mm-hmm.
It's just saying you have a trade where you exchange 2 pawns for your rook.
Oh no! So what I'm saying is, if you're up in exchange, or even if material's even, it's worth it to sacrifice a rook for a piece if you get a pawn in initiative, or especially if you get a couple pawns.
Yeah,
it's actually pretty useful.
What happened in the first exchange is you had a knight take a pawn here,
Yeah.
and then the knight took the bishop here. So you had bishop and pawn for the rook.
Mm-hmm.
Well, if you look here, you could have bishop and pawn for the rook. That's what I'm talking about. This is the exchange that you might give back. Because what it does, among other things, is it gives this rook, it lets your rook invade on this square. And a rook position right there, I mean, it has all sorts of possibilities coming up on attacking over here, doubling up with the queen maybe, putting pressure here.
Anyway, my main point was don't be too shy in sacrificing and exchanging your own games. Like, usually if you just get a piece, a pawn, and maybe some initiative or a nice position, that's usually enough. Or if you get 2 pawns especially, it's usually pretty good. Now, in this kind of position especially, you have to remember that rooks operate well in open position. So even though white's up the exchange, realistically his advantage is not really so big. Right? And here, all they got to sacrifice itself. Yeah. Well, it's not. You understand the move rook e5? Yeah, he just showed it, but
Yeah.
Play more pressure on this.
yeah. Well, so why would he play rook e5 and not take e6? E6 is a free pawn. I mean, so why would you sack it for the knight on e5 instead of attacking on e6?
Because the knight's better placed than the bishop.
Yeah, that's really one important point, right? The bishop on c8, like I've mentioned before, is pretty much worthless, right? I mean, what can it possibly do for black or do to white? Pretty much nothing, right? And also on e5, we're also going to attack that c5 pawn. Remember, if that falls, d4 is probably also going to fall too. So if we take on e6, cool, it's a pawn, but it supported f5, which is not weak, right? So it's kind of twofold. We're not getting rid of one of black's worst pieces, and we're attacking his pawn chain instead of e6, which is not really useful for white. So yeah, after this is pretty much devastating because c5 is going to fall, and then d4 as well. So I think black played a few more moves, but it was really kind of hopeless. Yeah, so here, here bishop takes this is a tactical point. So bishop e5 fails because of what?
Knight takes e6.
Yeah, right, and then taking on f8. So this is a problem for black.
Yeah, that's a nice little tactic.
You know, I think he's pretty much in big trouble because a6 is also under attack. But
Yeah.
I'm not sure if black played this out or not.
No, this is resigned.
Yeah, he's just resigned. Yeah, knight takes e6 is irresistible here. Yeah, so
why
white,
doesn't the bishop?
what's up?
Why doesn't the
Bishop takes the queen.
Then bishop a3.
Bishop takes rook.
no? Yeah, and then why
Okay.
after the knight? Then why doesn't the bishop take?
It does, and then
It's
bishop
check.
takes-
Oh,
Yeah, bishop takes e6, then
oh,
bishop
you
f8.
take the queen. Okay.
Yeah.
Then that's it.
Then you get this queen invading over here, and this rook has no easy way to get into the game. Yeah. I mean, even though there's a slight, I mean, this is a passed pawn, right? It's being blockaded by a bishop, but you really need that bishop to contribute. It's just
Yeah, materially, white has, queen and pawn against bishop and rook,
yeah.
and that's pretty good. And by the way, when you have a queen against pieces, usually the more pawns, the more the better, because the queen is good at double attacks, right? So if your opponent has lots of stuff to attack, that's usually pretty useful.
Yeah.
So yeah, here it's not too hard for white.
It's also going to be easier with the queen on the board for white. It's going to be much easier for white to get the king involved than for black to get his king involved. It's just game over at this point.
All right.
Okay.
So white did make that look easy, and it was a pretty good position from the opening. But in the end, he did make some pretty good moves. Like rook e5 was pretty strong. F4 was strong, right? Queen D2, precise. So just try to emulate that in your own games, right? Yeah.
No, easy peasy. Okay.
All right, this one was fun. All right, so let's get to the middle game.
Well, just so you know, Ivanchuk is a really strong Russian player, played in the Canada's tournament a few years ago. Gatakomsky is the U.S. champion, current U.S. champion, and has won it like 5 times. So these are both really strong players.
Yeah, we talked about Kamsky before. He was a lawyer, right?
Took 10 years off from chess, then came back.
Yeah, Ivanchuk is really interesting in himself, but
is he Chucky or is it Grishchuk who's Chucky?
he's Chucky.
Ivanchuk is Chucky.
The Ukrainian guy is the Chucky you might refer to. He's probably the second best player to never win the world championship.
Okay, he's a really interesting. Like he's the guy that like his flag will just fall and he'll just lose and he won't care.
Yeah,
that's him. Yeah,
yeah, he's kind of nuts. He's known for like mouthing words to himself during the game. So he's kind of out there. He's a little odd, but he's entertaining. He's always scruffy too. He looks kind of homeless, but.
So again, we start with the Sicilian.
Yep. Yeah, this is known as a Pologayevsky variation.
Yeah, bishop c5, interesting. Okay. The bishop has a nice little home there on a7. I love putting my bishops there, a7, a2.
Yeah, just so you know, so with bishop a7, Black's trying to make White's typical plan of f4 a little bit more difficult, because then he couldn't castle, right? So with playing queen e2, White's trying to interpose a bishop with bishop e3. So that's just explaining why White's playing like this.
So instead you're doing this so that you can actually castle and play f4. Yeah. Okay. There's the bishop e3 move.
Yeah, it may look really strange for Black to let White take on a7 like that, but actually the rook on a7 can be usefully placed because Black can move the b pawn, and then it can then hover along the 7th ring. Yeah. So it's kind of an interesting idea. It's not so typical of openings, but in this line, it kind of is.
Okay. c4.
Have you guys heard of the Maroczy bind?
Yes.
Yeah, that's essentially what White's doing here.
Have I been the victim of a Maroczy bind? Yes. Have I determined never to let the Maroczy bind ever hit me again and never ever play the accelerated dragon ever again? Yes.
Yeah, so some of us here can personally understand the strength of this setup for White.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's basically just stopping d5, which is a spring move, right?
Yeah. Interesting. One move up. Okay.
Yeah, he's just giving himself room for that rook.
Yeah. Queen c7, okay.
The Black's position is passive, but he has built some nice trenches.
Okay.
So it's hard for White to really evade. All right, and here's an interesting point. So, Ivanchuk saw an interesting conception, and you'll see why he played this following move. Now, here an interesting quote comes to mind from Napoleon. He said that if your enemy is in the process of making a mistake, don't interrupt him. Okay, and that's essentially what Bishop F1 is, and this is what GMs are so good at. They might make this mysterious move. You have no idea what the heck they're doing. If you play a GM and they do that, they're probably just waiting. Okay. The idea is that it's easier to let your opponent beat themselves than it is for you to beat them sometimes. Okay. This is actually a really useful practical thing. Now it's a good idea in blitz too. If you just see a way to maintain the position, that is kind of semi-closed like this, just chill out. Maybe your opponent will figure out a plan for you, right?
And this is also the course of pretty much every game I've ever played against Warren, because what he'll do is he doesn't go for cheap tricks, he doesn't go for gimmicks, he just puts his pieces on good squares. Pawn here, favorable exchange there, and then all of a sudden I'm collapsing and losing. And it's not like he's going for any kind of gimmicks to beat me quickly, no. He's playing a game that he can't lose. And it took me a while to understand it. And it's also incidentally the reason that I still challenge him, because it's pretty. But yes, he holds his sword out and waits for you to impale yourself on it.
In this case, so with Black's last move, Rook B7, he's really hinting at his B5 break. And by the way, it's common in this pawn structure with the Moronxy bind, just because Black wants to eliminate that C4 pawn, because it's part of what's binding him, right? White has that stranglehold on the D5 square. So with B5, Black's trying to get rid of that. Ideally, he'd like to play B5, trade that off, and then play D5, and then really free his position. So,
Yeah.
But Ivan Chuck spotted a kind of problem with this, so he was fine allowing it. So anyway,
So there's the B5 break.
yep. But we'll see the fault in it shortly here. So now he puts knight on D5, and Black can't really tolerate this, so he's really forced to take. Knight takes obviously loses because of the fork, right? So bishop takes is the only way.
Knight takes and then the fork.
Yeah,
Pawn
takes. E takes would then fork the bishop and the knight.
Oh yeah.
So that's just why he had to take the bishop.
Takes with the bishop. Okay. Pawn recaptures. Two attackers, I guess. Well, you had to move it somewhere, didn't you?
Yep.
Yeah.
Black had no choice.
Yeah.
And now,
Oh gosh. Oh, that hurts.
well, this is a nice move, but it's not. I have a feeling I think what you're looking at, but it's not for that reason. This move.
Well, what if you can double your rooks on C? Then that knight is staying on. Well, it's not staying on C6, but yeah.
Yeah, so right now the pawn on D5 is plugging off the white rooks from their activity. So with this move, actually, White's just trying to clear the way. So he's actually just going to play knight C6 no matter what next move, basically.
Yeah.
And then you'll see why that happens. So Black plays, I think, Rook C7. Yeah, and then White just moves a knight in.
Plays it anyway.
It may seem strange why he does this, but White, because it sacrifices the pawn, right? But White does actually get the pawn back.
Yeah, don't you get that D pawn, D6 in compensation?
Well, not immediately. So knight takes, rook takes. And now, yeah, this is the...
Oh, wow.
Because White has that pin.
Oh, of course. Wow.
Yeah, the annoying thing for Black is that he can't just trade queens because if D takes, rook D8, queen D8, rook D8, king move, and then takes on D5. Then White has extra pawn and two passers on the queen side. So this is not acceptable for Black. Meanwhile, we end up in this situation where Black has two weak pawns on the B file and the D file. And this may not look like that big of a deal, but
It's a big deal.
yeah, among two GMs, it's basically decisive. Now, a good rule of thumb is if you're ever in an endgame, one weakness is okay. But if you have two, you usually can't guard them both. And White ends up showing that nicely here. It's nice showing the process of how White does this here, though.
Okay.
So I think Black plays B4 or something like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, by the way, a move like Rook C5 fails because what?
Let's take this variation. Just take it.
Yeah, the Rook just hangs. Yeah.
Boom.
Yeah.
I just want to make sure you saw that there. Okay. Yeah, because generally speaking, if you have a pawn weakness, you don't want to push up further the board. But here, Black doesn't have much of a choice.
Okay, so instead we get B4. We get something Keeley B3. No.
Just move the queen instead.
Oh, okay.
He's actually intending bishop C4 too.
Right.
Yep.
Can we please trade queens? Nope, not yet. Okay. Trade anyway.
Yep. It's nice seeing how White plays here.
Okay. Blockade.
Now, bishop B3 doesn't actually do a whole lot. It just doesn't ruin your position. So White can be patient here. He doesn't really have to hurry. He has weaknesses on D6 and D4, so he'll just improve little by little. All right.
Okay. King more centralized.
Yep.
Expand on the king side.
Sure.
Why just now? Why doesn't the rock on D1 moves to E1? So the king cannot like go away.
Okay.
So I think he wanted to leave his rooks there for now in order to keep the rooks pinned on D8 and D6.
But it would be easier to do a checkmate. Like once the other, like the two other rocks are
Well, keep in mind the knight covers the square also.
Yeah, so a good rule of thumb with open files is only move your rook to them if there's like a target there, basically. So that's why black, for example, is not trying to play rook a6, right? Because it would attack a2, you know, yay, right?
Yeah.
So in rook e1 would be cool if it gets e7, but here it's not possible. So.
Okay, now move with check. Oh, yeah, he had to move it there because he couldn't block off his own rook, could he?
Yeah, well, if king d7, then bishop f7, so it was kind of forced tactically.
Yeah, okay.
So here he has a definite hole on c7 he can go to.
Yeah.
So that's the one way to defend that.
Okay. Is this more of a waiting move here?
So he's just trying to move the knight from f6 because it guards e4. Like, so for example, here, white's actually threatening g5 because rook e4 check would be decisive.
Oh, I see.
So he's actually making a direct threat with this move.
Okay.
I think black played g5. It's really the only way to avoid that rook e4 check idea. But now white just pursues that weakness. I think rook h8, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is always a bad sign. Whenever you're defending these endgames, you really always want to try to avoid moving your pawns. Because black already has weaknesses on d6 and b4. By playing g5, he's forced to take another one on h6. So that's too many weaknesses to guard. So then white just took the pawn. Yeah. So white finally has some kind of material compensation for his good position.
A pawn.
And it's nice to see that white finishes off here.
Oh, that's unfortunate. Oh, check. Okay, yeah. Boy, moving your king in between two rooks, that's yeah, okay.
It's the only move because b4 was under attack in f6.
Yeah.
It was boldness out of necessity.
Yeah. Okay, so that king can't make any further progress. Black's king, sorry.
Yep.
These squares are all, you're not getting in that way.
Yeah, he's reached his furthest point there.
Okay. Trade? No? Double. Okay.
Rook c6 mate is a threat, right? So
Yeah, this is checkmate.
I think he interposed on d7.
Does it anyway. Okay, so
King back.
only one move. Yeah. Now does he take? He does not. Oh, wow. Okay. Sorry. Threatens both. That seems a desperate move right there.
Yeah, it's hard.
Seems like a Zugzwang sort of move, like, I got nothing else going.
Yeah, well, I think he was kind of depressed because if he plays like rook g8, then white's going to play king e5. I guess he was just sad to see that.
Yeah. Alright, so Duke takes their first, takes their second. Now we have take the king, take the rook, sorry, take the pawn, and now this passed pawn is...
Now with the 2 extra pawns, it's just...
Yeah.
Yeah, if black played much longer, it wasn't...
Yeah, it was resign time. Yeah, one of these 2 pawns, heck, this pawn by itself is worth the knight. Knight's going to have to give himself up to save one of those pawns, to keep one of those pawns from promoting.
So really the 2 takeaways from this game, I thought, were just, one, you don't always have to do something. Okay, if it's a semi-closed position, you can't figure out what to do, let your opponent do the work, right? If you can find these kind of waiting moves. Yeah, you'll get better at them as you go along. Okay. Now, if you want to study how you might go about finding these moves, look at games like Tiger Petrosian. He was great at making these moves. And Anatoly Karpov was another great one. they were so good at making mysterious moves, people couldn't figure out what was going on, and then all of a sudden they'd make their mistake, making one little weakness, and then they'd lose, right?
Yeah, and sometimes, I remember Warren showed a game once, Petrosian playing Kasparov, and Kasparov had an advantage, and Petrosian just took his time, kept maneuvering, until all of a sudden Kasparov's advantage is gone, and then keeps maneuvering until Petrosian's in a favorable position, and then beats him. And it's just like how, and he made this crazy king journey to do it, but anyway, it's just like how do you have the wherewithal and the patience to just sit back while you're playing someone as intimidating as Kasparov, and just wait and let them erode their own advantage, and then take your own, seize control of the game and win? It was something that made quite a mark on me, actually.
Yeah, so it's not necessarily always the right choice, but it's good to keep that in mind. I mean, I used to have a problem where I would push too hard and I would lose in games. It'd be like equal, and I would try to mix it up, try to do something and lose. Finally, when I figured out that you didn't have to actually do something with your move, that's kind of a new concept to me. It's not always a good idea to try to do nothing, right? You should always try to be improving your position. But if you can't figure out how, it's better instead of lashing out, just wait. Okay.
And it's also Warren's #1 secret to winning at blitz. Yeah.
Yeah, if you think about blitz, think of it this way: your opponent has to run out of time before they checkmate you, right? And you win. That's how I think of it. Yeah.
It's like Stephen earlier when I was saying, just play H4, just snap it off. Don't even think about it. Your opponent is lower than you on time. Just it's a decent move, make it, and then let him spend 10 seconds thinking about his next move, and then all of a sudden they've got 15 seconds on their clock. You've got a minute on your clock, and you win. Yeah.
Yeah. So those are the. Oh, and the other takeaway was endgames. So White had a better endgame there because Black had those two weaknesses on B4 and B6, and White had no weakness.
Yeah.
And of course, we saw the Fischer lecture. Then he also had the Fischer bishop, so the White squared bishop.
Right.
Yeah.
All right. And our last one for today, Radjabov versus Milov. Back in 2005, I think Radjabov is rated higher now.
Yeah, Radjabov was kind of young then.
Yeah.
I don't know when he was born, but I remember him being young a few years ago, so quite young. Yeah, Milov was a little bit older, but. Yeah.
Oh, and Devin's happy. Finally, there's a D4 game.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, this was a King's Indian.
It may look strange to you. It certainly looked strange to me. I remember when I first saw, well, what is Black doing over there on the side there? The idea is you can use the sides of the chessboard to exert control over the center. We call it hyper-modern chess because you're not directly contesting the center yet by pushing your central pawns, but you still have a strong influence on the center, and incidentally, you're able to castle super quickly. This sort of a defense actually appeals quite a bit to me, but anyway. Okay, so let's throw a third pawn out there.
Yeah, by the way, this move H3, it may look kind of bizarre. It is a little bit offbeat. I think it's called the Makakov variation or something like that. So it's actually a kind of a specialty of one of the American GMs, Conrad Holt. I don't know if you've heard his name before, but this is one of his favorite lines in his King's Indian.
And I guess the idea is just preventing...
Right, so it keeps a black piece out of G4. It may look like it's trying to stop the knight, but actually it's kind of aimed against the bishop. So you'll kind of see why when you see White's moves. So as opposed to regular King's Indian variations, yeah, E5 is fine. So White actually takes on E5 here. So the idea is that by playing H3, that you don't have to worry about White playing Bishop G4. And actually, in the King's Indian and these exchange variations, the light squared bishop is actually usually Black's problem piece. So he usually has a hard time finding a role for that. Because if they can't go to G4, it's kind of unclear what it's supposed to be doing. So that's actually what it's aimed against. So anyway, takes on E5. Now, by the way, E5 is not a hanging pawn. Do you know why?
Sorry, E5.
Yeah, are you guys familiar with the King's Indian? Have you seen too many games of this? Okay, yeah, I should mention. So black almost always tries to play e5, try to get some space on the king side. Now, most of the time, most games you're going to see white play d5 just to gain a lot of space. But in an exchange like this, it's perfectly playable. Okay, and e5 is almost never a concern for black to defend because white has hanging pieces, right?
Yeah.
So, by the way, it's a good practice if you find yourself having problems just losing pieces or losing pawns. After every move, get to the habit of looking for every hanging piece in your position. So if white were to take on e5, what all is hanging in his position?
The knight.
The knight? What else?
The pawn, the c4.
c4 is extended. The knight and the bishop.
The rook on h1.
Rook on h1, good. May seem kind of silly, but it's still good to get in the habit. What else?
b2.
Yeah, b2. And it turns out that these weaknesses, especially one on e5, is going to be a problem.
So knight takes e4.
Yeah, knight takes e4, right? You just expose an attack on that. Now, white cannot try a desperado and go for like knight takes f7.
Whoa. Crazy town.
Looks tempting, right? Because now if black, say, plays king takes f7, then knight takes e4, right?
Well, you wouldn't play king takes f7, would you?
Well, maybe
Oh.
queen takes d1 or whatever.
No. Yeah, okay. Queen takes d1, then you can take with rook. Okay. Yeah.
But this is not the right idea for black. He can actually win a piece.
Yeah.
So instead of king takes f7, how can black win?
I think bishop on c3.
Bishop takes e3. Very good. Yeah. And what's your idea? Why do you play that?
Because it's check and he's defended by the knight.
It's check and he's defended by the knight. Well, why not play like knight takes c3 then? You found the right move, but
Knight takes c3 isn't check though.
Yeah, knight takes c3 is in check, and white would play like queen takes d8, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, you did find the right move, but really you're playing bishop takes c3 because knight at e4 is under attack. Yeah, it's not necessarily to. I'm not sure what was your reason again?
The bishop checks the king and the knight defends the bishop.
Oh yeah. So it's not really important the knight defends the bishop because white can just take the piece for free, right? Black may win the c3 pawn, but that's not the issue. Yeah, so you just play bishop takes c3 so that your knight's not hanging. All right. So this fails for white. So yeah, knight takes e5 does not win a pawn. And if you're playing the King's Indian as black, just know that you can almost always play e5 in any position because white just has too much hanging stuff and dictates on that. So with c5, white is opening up the slice for bishop. Bishop takes a6 would be kind of annoying because it really splits the pawn structure, right? So black, I think, just played knight b4.
Yeah.
Trying to solve that problem. Yeah, so here white's just attacking the knight. Now, why did black not play knight d3 check?
It's bishop.
But it wins a bishop.
Oh.
That's enough for me.
Yeah, but the queen
rook
takes
d1.
back.
So takes, queen takes.
Wait, it's check.
Well, rook d1 is okay, but white has an even stronger move.
I'm sorry, so you're saying what happens if this,
Yeah, it's not good. Yeah, clearly white has to
and then
take.
this,
right?
and then this?
Now how does white win?
Knight takes e5.
Yeah. Now white can take the pawn because black has no time to organize a counterattack. Black has to like play queen d8, and then white can just play knight f3, and he's home free.
Thank you very much.
Yep, now he got away. So, unfortunately, black can't solve this problem with knight so easily. So that's why he played a5. Unfortunately, it creates a weakness. What does a5 do? What weakness? b5 is definitely one, right? Because now black only has one pawn that can guard b5. Also creates another weakness, which is the a5 pawn itself.
It's good.
What's that?
It's good.
Mm-hmm.
So
Wow.
somehow you take the knight.
It is pinned, but yeah, I mean, I don't conceive white ever taking the knight with his queen, so. But yeah, that could be useful, yeah. Okay, so I think white just brought the rook to the d file. Yeah, now white really kicks the knight out.
Oh, he didn't play b4 here. Okay. Oh, because, yeah, knight can take. Okay, sorry.
Well, if b4 knight takes is not really the issue, actually.
No, pawns. Oh, yeah, no, it's not, is it?
So even though the position is closed right now, this is our common King's Indian tactic. White does have to be wary of black trying to open it up. So bishop b2 actually has a tactical purpose. Do you want me to tell you what black's tactic for opening up the position is? You want to try to figure it out? You want to figure it out? No? Yeah? Okay. I'll give you a second. Like, for example, it'll make it more clear. So instead of bishop b2, white could have played bishop b5. It looks more natural in some respect because you're actually making a threat with your move.
I'm sorry, bishop
b5.
b5. Is it something like that?
Yep. And knight d4 is a really common move in the King's Indian, these kind of positions. Just because you open up the e file, even the cost of pawn, could be worth it. Now here it works because if you take on d4, say knight takes d4, e takes, say bishop takes, black has knight takes e4.
Yeah.
The problem is that now if you take on g7, then you run into knight c3, or if you take on e4, black just takes with the queen, and white's king is going to be stuck in the center because you can't play bishop e3s, right?
No, if you play bishop b3. Oh, no, wait, can?
Oh wait, that's on. Oh, okay. Yeah, it is true. White takes on black takes on a4 and then on b2, and then he's gonna win that a3 pawn too, I think.
Okay.
Okay, so yeah, white can actually do this, but he loses material in the process.
Yeah.
So it's kind of hard for for white to play bishop b5. So bishop b2 makes a difference, by the way. Now black plays a knight b4, or sorry, bishop e2.
Yeah.
But the e file is blocked on e2. So now if black plays knight d4, white just takes, knight takes, e takes, bishop takes.
Sorry, knight takes. Come on. E takes, bishop takes.
Yeah, and now knight takes e4 doesn't work because of what? How does white win now?
Knight? Knight, bishop.
Well, knight takes e4, queen takes e4, black is okay.
Bishop takes g7.
Yeah, and if knight takes e3,
Bishop takes knight.
yeah, bishop takes knight, right? And black can also try knight takes c5, and then white just plays queen d4, right? So that doesn't work either. So unfortunately, black is kind of stuck losing a piece there. So with bishop on e2, these tactics don't work. Yeah, just by the way, queen d4 here finishes off.
That's annoying.
Yeah, and then furthermore, moves like knight e6 with a fork wouldn't work either. In knight e6 instead of rook e8, you would run into just bishop takes f8, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, unfortunately, these tactics don't work for black. So that's why he played bishop e2. It did actually have a tactical point.
Okay.
So let's keep going. Yeah, bishop d7, making the queen uncomfortable. Now knight d4 is definitely a threat, so white goes back. Yeah, the point of this move seems clear to me, at least. He's attacking e5, right? Threatening bishop takes e6, and knight takes e5. So this is not really advanced positional chess here.
Yeah. This idea. That idea.
All right, so I think something like knight a7.
Yeah. Okay. Nice.
All right, now white tries to get rid of their one bishop on c4, just plays bishop b3. And black can't really maintain that square on c4 because play like queen e6, then white just takes on c4 and then on e5. So black has to trade the bishop.
He does not trade.
Or okay, yeah, he goes back. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Or he offers to trade the bishop, but over there on his own terms.
Yeah, now if knight takes e5, bishop b3, so that doesn't work for white. I think white just took on e6 anyway.
Yeah, took it anyway. Queen takes.
And now, yeah, rook takes first.
Rook takes.
And now queen a4.
Oh.
And this a5 pawn is just indefensible, right? Yeah, so this is why it's a good idea to see what's hanging in your position and your opponent's, right? Because if you're sitting here before playing queen a4, you're just thinking, okay, what's hanging in black's position? Well, rook, knight, pawn at a5. Can I attack any of them? Well, I can just play queen a4 and attack the pawn. And you'll see that black actually can't defend it. So.
Okay. Gobble that up. And
Yeah, here he
trades?
Well, it's kind of hard to suggest much different. He's trying to undermine the e4 pawn at least.
Okay. Yeah, but just take, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of hard to criticize black since the position's already moved.
Right.
But
And now, grab another pawn? No.
yeah. I think queen b5 was also winning, but here he's just trying to. Well, he'd want to exchange b5 for e4 because b5 is a double pawn. It has less value than e4, so it's just simpler.
Okay.
But yeah, for the record, you could have taken on b5.
Now he takes.
Yeah, here it's nice to see how white wraps up. Okay. Now you don't want to tolerate an active piece like that, so that's why he chopped it right off immediately.
And you're also up a little bit of material. 2 pawns?
Yeah.
So even trades, I don't know, bishop and for knight may not be an even trade, particularly headed toward an endgame. But up 2 pawns, you can prevent yourself to simplify a little bit.
Yep.
The way I've heard it explained is if you have a material advantage, the more pieces you take off the board, the greater your material advantage becomes, even after equal trades. So if you are up a couple of pawns and you can trade rooks, that makes your 2 pawns even better.
Yeah.
And so this, I mean, I would have taken that trade in a heartbeat.
Yeah, one of my coaches explained to it in terms of like ratios. Like he explained like what's bigger is 99 hundredths bigger or is 9/10 bigger. 99 hundredths is bigger. Wait. Yeah. So what that implies is that your opponent has more room for counterplay.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
The difference is smaller, right? Basically.
Yeah, I saw a video where Kasparov was explaining it, and he was talking about, I have 5 attackers, he has 3 defenders. So if I trade a piece, it's fine. Now I have 4 attackers, he has 2 defenders. That's even better, right?
Yeah.
All right.
Does e5 make any sense?
Makes a lot of sense.
He's just blocking the bishop, right? Yeah.
Very sad bishop.
Yeah, black wasn't actually attacking anything, but here he just shuts off black's only minor piece here.
Yeah. Could also maybe give you an avenue to attack that piece a little bit better. I don't know.
Yeah, it does cut off f4, but black does. I think he plays g5 in the game.
Oh, yeah, he does. Okay. All right. 3 connected pawns.
Yeah.
Push them down the board. Okay. Gotta undermine that. Oh, interesting. Oh, you're just offering. Wait, you're not offering a trade.
Yeah, here he's just keeping b4 protected, so he doesn't lose a3, but if black takes that, then white plays e6 and opens up the position with black's queen off sides. So it's just a queen centralization, I guess, but simply. Okay. When you're up material, you can allow to give yourself a little bit back.
So that makes e6 less. Ooh, okay.
Yep. Just undermining black's pawns.
Takes finally.
Now he takes f4.
Yeah. So we're still even material. Or we still have our 2 pawn advantage, I should say.
Yep.
Okay.
Another pawn bites the dust.
Now we have a 3 pawn advantage. And yet, Milov plays on. He's brave.
Yeah.
Or he didn't have anything planned that night. Okay.
Yeah, I think Black plays on a little bit, but the rest isn't really too instructive. And it just kind of attacks on the king side.
And then that's
Yeah,
and then Black resigns.
yeah, he's threatening queen f6 and queen takes e8, so he can't guard both.
Yeah, threatening that and that. Yeah. And that's gonna lead to mate if he can play queen f6.
Yeah, queen f6, queen f7, and then mate on g8 or g7.
Oh yeah, and then g8. Oh sorry,
Yeah.
and g8.
I mean, technically he could play rook e7, but then white wins by how?
I want to play that.
Well, it does win, although white has a little bit simpler.
Okay.
Queen f6.
Yeah, queen f6 also wins. Yeah,
Yeah, but
yeah. I'll tell you what, I was just looking at queen c8. Just because black can't guard the bishop. Yeah, if you go win with check, it's usually easier. But
Okay.
yeah, your moves definitely win, it's just this is more forceful.
There's no way to defend that bishop.
Yeah.
That bishop is just dead to the world. Okay.
But yeah, all your moves also win, so you get credit, you know. Yeah.
Okay.
But yeah, so the lesson from that game is, well, it should be more complicated, I guess, but the most useful thing, I think, is just to identify what your weaknesses are, i.e. what's actually hanging. So it's a good practice. Just find out what is actually undefended in your opponent's position. So you can give you a good hint of what to attack.
Yeah, okay.
So,
White's, yeah. White's up more than the queen would want. Okay.
yeah, if it's just queen f4, then you know it's pretty devastating.
Yeah, queen f4 is your only choice. Otherwise,
Apparently, it's the only way to avoid immediate mates.